Welcome to Raging Bullets, a comics fan podcast, Season 2, Episode 762.
From the great outskirts of Cleveland to wherever you may roam, Sean and Jim thank you for listening to the Raging Bullets podcast show.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of you know, the Sultan of Strategery, the Minister of More Gooder. Wishes Sean would stop sending Fletcher over to his house for a free consultation, and of course he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be wrapping up Tap Dance Killer with issues number 4 and 5. Without further ado, we are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
First off, there is a 6th printing of Absolute Batman number 1. 6th printing. That's outstanding. 40% off, $2.99. We also have the Absolute Luthor Joker hardcover, 50% off, $62.50. And this last one I pulled specifically for you, Sean, in case you didn't realize what was out there. Dark Horse has 10,000 Ink Stains, a memoir of Jeff Lemire, 36% off, $31.99. This is a collection of various works by him with commentary as well as never-before-seen material.
I love his work, so
yeah.
That's up my alley. And no, that was not on my radar. I didn't catch that one, so thank you. That's exactly something I need for my collection. Over at InStockTrades.com, there's some deals of the week, and there's a number of them actually I really want to shout out because they're books I really like. Absolute Promethea is getting a 2025 edition hardcover book 1. It's out now. It's $100 regularly, 50% off, only $50. Batman Dark Age hardcover, $39.99 regularly, 50% off, only $19.99. Jujutsu Kaisen graphic novel volume 25, $11.99 regularly, 40% off, only $7.19. I was just talking to my boss about this the other day. His son is really into the anime of this. So it's got it on my radar because I haven't watched it yet, and I'm kind of curious to watch it. And then what ends up happening to me is if I end up liking the anime, I'm right back to the manga. So it's an interesting draw for me. This one is interesting to me, and it kind of makes me feel old. Vision and Scarlet Witch Marvel Masterworks hardcover. Here's why it's making me feel old. This is from the 80s, and it's a Marvel Masterworks. I used to always associate Marvel Masterworks with things like before I was born, like that came out, because when the series started out, it was always the older, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four stuff, the stuff that was really hard to get in these really classic, well put together hardcover editions. I realize now this line's been going on so long that they're well caught up to, I was born in 71. Like, this is deep into my comic collecting at this point. But this is a really good series. It's a 12-issue series, and it actually collects some of the issues from West Coast Avengers. And a lot of this ties into some of the Agatha and stuff that was going on the Disney Plus series, was inspired by this series. So this is $100 regularly, 46% off, only $54, and there's 2 different cover versions. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's wrap up Tap Dance Killer. On this episode, we're going to take a look at the final part of Tap Dance Killer with issues 4 and 5. Ted Sikora on the story, layouts, colors, and letters. Donnie and it's HADIWIDJAJA, layouts and pencils. And Nicholas Harrison. Chris, ARIESWENDHA on inks. And apologies for any name butchery there. I spelled out some of the last names because I knew I was going to destroy them, and I did not want to do that because this book, boy, issue number 4, really I'm glad we ended where we did last episode, mainly because of the fact that that really was a cliffhanger. I love how this one starts off with the origin of Fletcher. Because you get this, we get this backstory of him, in his meat shop, and his story's pretty sad. His wife has cheated on him. He's trying to kind of hold it all together, and all of a sudden this girl walks in, Elizabeth, who shows like this incredible interest in him, and it leads to an affair between the two. And it's really quite romantic. Of course, when you keep in your mind that it's Claus, a.k.a. Fletcher, this is going to go horribly wrong.
Yes.
You just feel like the ticking time bomb going. But she's like incredibly sweet. I loved the way that this all played out. The other piece, too, is the meat shop. When you see the signage in the back and stuff like that, man, does it take me back to my childhood. Actually going through and doing that with my parents. Like, so much of this feels like the Cleveland area throughout the whole thing. I just absolutely love the fact that reading this feels like home. There's something to that.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'll tell you, the thing I loved, and I remember doing this the very first time I read it, and then doing it again this time. The cover starts with you have the time bomb and all that stuff, and you remember, oh, yeah, we've got that cliffhanger. You flip the page, and it doesn't go into that. I'm like, oh, because you were waiting, you're just anticipating what's going to happen. And no, it's a swerve 1 year ago. And I was like, oh, that is absolutely brilliant, and I love that. And then the thing I also, it was something that I don't remember if I caught it last time or if it's something that just rang in my head this time. He starts having this affair with Elizabeth, and then his wife just suddenly dies.
Yes.
And, oh, no, I decided not to do an autopsy. I didn't want to see anyone violate my beloved Janet's body that way. I'm like, wait a minute. Did the dude kill his wife? This whole time I'm like, you're thinking, oh, here's this poor, sweet guy who got turned into this monster. But was he a monster all along? I don't know. And I love that.
Yeah. I also love that that's like left as unknown. I'll have to go back through and do some reading later on. I don't know if that's ever revealed, like what ends up happening to her. Because the nice part about the way that, and this is for anybody if you haven't read any of Ted's work, this universe is an ongoing universe, and certain story arcs, certain elements play into each other. This really is one big ongoing story. So there's times where, could be future down, is it in Punchline the Vaudevillains? Is it? I don't remember if it's ever been revealed yet what happened to her. If it's left as unknown and left for us to make the assumption, something untoward may have happened here, I like that too. That's one of the nice things about this is it sets up a lot of different pathways and possibilities. It's very smart writing. I love just being left. You and I both thinking the same thing. It's like, oh no, Klaus, what'd you do to her? Yeah. And I think it's him. I don't think it's Elizabeth at all. I think it's him, right?
Oh, 100% him.
Yeah. So we get then the piece of when they all take that potion and they're turned really into their characters, and you start to see him doing these experiments both on stage and off. Which his whole thing is really driven by bringing the dead back to life. In some ways, repairing the things that nobody else can seem to repair that have gone wrong with people. It's like an obsession of his, to the point where he really is the example of breaking a few eggs in order to make an omelet, because he's really completely, the work drives more than anything else that he's doing. And I really like that about the story. This also leads to the introduction of Violante, which this is her origin story here.
Yeah.
And I was just telling Jim before we started recording, at the most recent Fan Expo Cleveland, Ted had a wonderful booth, and he does a number of cons. So you keep a look on his Facebook page and Instagram and those type of things for upcoming cons that he does. Because when he goes to the conventions, he will have cosplayers there with him at times. He had someone who was a Pama, and he had a girl who did this killer version of Violante. And it was just, my wife and I got a picture. It was stunning. I mean, it was really, really strong cosplay. Could be plopped into a movie right now. And you would be like, wow, this is movie quality. Because nowadays our expectations as far as what characters look like on the screen, is, you don't want that cheesy hokey stuff. You want like somebody who really looks like the character. She did a bang up job. I mean, it was absolutely stunning. So we get this story about him going into these ceremonies and rituals where he's trying to tap into the realities of it. He gets so, like, they want to keep doing more experimentations on him. And he's like, I know what I need to know here now. I'm going to start experimenting on Elizabeth and her DNA to see what I can do. Boy, you don't want to, like, I would not recommend that a sister of mine or cousin of mine or anybody I know dates Claus. Because he's like, I know how to cure her. And he does not want them to know anything. Now it all has become secret to the point that he's ready to kill them and he does, in order to keep the secrets. This sets the stage for Violante's origin right here. And I don't know if I blanked out or didn't realize the impact of this moment, that not only has Claus killed 2 people, but he's also created a new character for this whole universe, which is really interesting. Nothing's ever a throwaway in these books. There are things that happen that pivotally play off later, and I really love that.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I'm same boat as you are. It completely just blanked out on me about Violante's origin right here.
Yeah.
But also, the other thing I loved is the assistant is saying, hey, no, we can't rush the process. You need another step. If he had actually gone through that other step, maybe future problems wouldn't have occurred. Maybe there was more he needed to learn, but we've got this whole combination of Klaus and Fletcher going on here that is blocking his mind, because the weird potion that all those people took, it gave Tap Dance Killer gave her strength and agility and all that other stuff. It beefed up his mind and evolved his level of intellect to unfathomable levels. And I love that his power that came from that potion was intelligence, because that kind of explains how he's able to do all that he does. But along with that intelligence, as we've seen with a lot of brilliant supervillains, is that ego. And it's the ego that cost him possibly truly curing Elizabeth. Maybe Elizabeth would have actually been cured if he would have done a couple more sessions with them and actually figured out all the science behind what he's planning on doing.
When we flip back over to really the main event that we wanted to see, I actually really liked this dramatic build to the 5, 4, 3, 2. I am going to say this. At the end of the last issue, when I saw the baby in there, and the junkie mom, I kind of figured where this was going to go. Is the mom dead? Because the bugs around her? Is the mom already dead?
That's how I'm taking it. I'm taking it that the mom OD'd.
Okay. So that's I mean, it's an interesting visual when we're sitting there. Regardless, I don't think she had a way to save both. But I loved that Nikki made the choice right there. She's dropping her bag of money and she's getting the baby out. This led to, I thought, a really strong action sequence. The explosion, boom baby, with the opening page spread, flipping into her falling. This is something where she's not going to be able to land safely and save the kid. She knows this. She's got to rely heavily on her teammates. Her teaming up very quickly with Punchline in this, I thought was really awesome. Because she's punch, catch, softest hands of your life, which you got to tell a boxer that. And I really liked the whole dynamic between the two of them. This was multiple panels of, she's the tap dance killer, right? So much of the artistry of this is everything she does is a dance when they have the action sequences. It is just something that's very different. We used the comparison on one of the previous episodes of characters like Batgirl and Dick Grayson and their acrobatics and the way that they do combat. I like that this feels like that because it would be that type of character, but yet there is that dance motion aspect to it that is something that I feel like everything is a bit of a dance. And I like the way that she's got that reading people thing going on and reading situations thing going on that makes sense as far as them almost being dance partners for her. And I really just enjoy this character is intriguing me on a level that when I read this through the first time, loved every minute of it. Reading it through again for this has made me feel and notice so much more. It's another example of where, sometimes taking some space from a book and then coming back and rereading it later, you just get something fresh with it. And this has just been a very cool journey in seeing this piece. I do like the artistic layout matching very much the style of the character. And it's that motion aspect of it. I love when comics make me feel motion, even though there really isn't motion going on. Yeah. That's something that I feel that it's an example of a successful artistic endeavor.
These pages are truly remnant of one of those, those artistic moments where you need the right artist to tell the story.
Yeah.
Again, the non-traditional panel layout of just breaking down through the page, showing Nikki's individual motion, Punch's motion of catching the kid and cushioning it so he protects the kid, and then she takes the bump. It was absolutely brilliant. It reminded me of a lot of some of those cool Nightwing panels we've seen where they really show the fluid motion. There's been some great Spider-Man panels where you're capturing Spidey doing stuff that only Spidey could do, on a single page. They did a brilliant job with that with her. And again, all that. Sorry. You're laughing at me.
No, it's not you. I'm just laughing at the irony of the fact that there's so many episodes now that you use the term non-traditional layout of panels that I'm sitting here wondering at what point in time does that become the traditional layout of panels? Yeah, I'm not laughing at you. It's just there's an irony of it. I'm engaged in what you're saying, and I'm agreeing with you, actually. Everything you're saying about it is correct, and you're spot on. But I was just laughing that so often now, non-traditional panels, where it's not the typical square panel layout, is used as a storytelling element like this, that I'm just laughing that we call, and you're right to do it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just thought it just made me chuckle because you were saying non-traditional layout. I'm sitting there like, we say that a lot. And I'm like, non-traditional layout. Like, at what point in time do you sit there and go, well, this kind of is traditional now?
We're going to come up with a new term. I'm going to come up with a new term for that.
Please do.
I am going to call this a fluid panel layout from now on.
What is that?
Because it shows the fluidity of action.
Oh, okay.
So this is the fluid panel layout.
Is it a traditional, non-traditional fluid panel layout?
This is...
I just want to understand.
No, this is the fluid panel layout.
I'm trying to get into your brain, which is a scary place. I'm sorry, I did not mean to derail you there. It just made me chuckle because I'm laughing at the use of non-traditional when we say it so much these days.
Yeah, there is a usage of it, and it's like I threw out two quick characters there, Nightwing and Spider-Man, where we see it a lot.
Yes.
But again, it is that motion. It is a way for art teams to convey that. And your really good artists are really good at using this.
Yeah.
And again, this is not just the ink, colors, lettering, the full art team, the writer laying out the script, everybody laying out a nice battle plan for these couple pages.
Dude, the bubble with the baby, when Punchline catches the baby, that being the close-up of the baby, I thought was just really a brilliant use of an emotional moment. Right?
Yeah.
It's showing that he was successful because you could actually, it looks gentle, which is not something you're used to seeing with Punchline, who's knocking down walls and people.
The man who knocked somebody up into the ceiling with a single punch.
Yes.
He's got soft hands. And I love they show the one hand cradling the head, the other one on the body.
And it
literally was soft hands catch. It was a brilliant job.
He also did a tuck and roll where he landed on his side. So that way he took the damage, not the baby.
Yeah.
I just thought it was something that was really cool in his dive. I like attention to detail like that, where it's how does this whole thing play out? And that's where emotion's achieved in your mind. We aren't actually seeing every little tiny movement, but your mind tricks you to take you there. And that's something where the correct artistic choices will make that happen. I loved every bit of this sequence. It's a beautiful art sequence.
Yes. Oh, God, yeah.
So back at the Vaudevillain's jumping joint, this Lizzie sequence is, especially knowing who she was, because sometimes when we see images of her, I keep forgetting, like, no, this was the girl.
Yeah.
When you see her, it's like, boy, he's got her tied up. And, are you ready to talk about what happened? And he's admonishing her for trying to kill Vincent. And she's like, no, I wasn't trying to kill him. I'll show you. I knew exactly what I was doing. He lets her go and gives her back the weapons, and she's showing how much control she has over her ability to stretch, where she can get right up close to the target without even touching the target. It's such a cool character design. Like, I really love, the craziness of it. But also it's so crazy to see something that looks so wild-eyed, but she's so proud of herself from being able to show how in control she is. That was really incredible. Then he's like, okay, show me close. And she's zipping through, and the close part is when she is just gently touching things. She was able to cut through his apron and tie without damaging him. That was such a cool action sequence in this that I didn't know I needed to see until I did. And I'm like, oh, man, I want more of this character.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, I love, she's like, not close, and she shows missing, not close, and then shows close, ding, that slight touch.
Yes.
Again, it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. These are, again, 2 pages that I didn't know I needed until I actually saw them. And I think that's a strength of a story. When you give you something, you're like, oh, I didn't know I wanted that. That's awesome. This, and it made the character go from, well, she's still creepy, but it made the character go, it started giving her depth even.
Yeah.
We got a creepy girl here, 100%. But, there's a level to the creepiness now that you're like, okay, there's still some intelligence in there.
Fletcher.
Whatever Fletcher did to her, which we're going to see later, there's still that Elizabeth is still in there somewhere.
He's psychotically brilliant.
Yes.
Which is a scary combination. When they're escaping with the baby and, we got Nikki is basically blown her shoulder. I love when he puts it back into place. I can never see that too much. With the, I think Lethal Weapon 2 was the first movie that I really saw this done in like a cool way, with the resetting of the shoulder, because Mel Gibson was resetting his own in that movie. Just the pain level that is associated with that. I love, she's out cold until he resets that shoulder, and man, is she up right away. And I love that because of his boxing background. He's like, I've had to deal with this before. I can help her with this. I like that even though they've been altered by Fletcher or altered by their respective situations, that not every rational thought's been thrown out the window. And I actually really like Punchline. Punchline is becoming much more of an evolved character. This is something that's been really good about these books. It's been fantastic in Apama, fantastic in this, has been that it's not just about the main character. It is about developing a larger universe and a larger cast that you actually care about. Everybody has some screen time and has some backstory that gradually unfolds, and you get to know. So these characters are ones that you're interested in following. So that way, when Punchline gets his own book, which has happened, when all these, you actually want to see these characters, and you want to see them still interacting with members of the supporting cast that were in the previous books. You know that it's not just going to be that character. You're going to get more characters that you've been following before in these ongoing stories. It's a clever way of introducing the universe, and it's really worked well. Because sometimes it's dangerous sometimes when you put a character's name on the cover that you can focus almost solely on that character, and you forget the need to develop other characters. It's what makes the world more real. We all talk about, on the show, how many times has what we've loved about the book not been the main character, but sometimes their interactions with key members of the supporting cast because you care about their backstory. and what's going on. This is a masterclass, really, in developing a new universe and making you care about these people. Because they're a nutty bunch.
Yes. Oh, big time. Again, it's the brilliant, just going from the brilliant balance of what character we're focusing on here, who we're doing this. We've never lost sight that Nikki is the main character, because this is her book, but you got to give enough time for everybody else to develop it, and I loved, again, this car scene was, the van getaway scene was absolutely brilliant, and then you flip the page to the whole group, and Sir Terror's like, what the heck are you doing here? What's going on? Just the whole, this reading them the riot act, and then you get to the point. I love Uzi's point is, and the worst part is she lost half the loot saving the kid.
Well, he's saying,
more worried about losing half the money than baby. I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
But Terror's actually
fit him.
Hang on, Terror's actually chastising them over the fact that he would have never sent them to an overheard covert bomb operation so close to detonation. He's basically saying the risk levels of what you took here during this piece is not something I would have approved of. I like that, he is at times he seems crazy, but he is a rational crime boss.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that side of him in this insanity. He is a bit of with everything he's lost and what goes on in this story, this robe is not a throwaway. It's an example of showing that this guy's in a little bit of a different place right now. Mm-hmm. But I really like the fact that he starts out by chastising them for the fact that you guys almost killed everything in what you were doing here. What were you thinking? I love the rational side of him. It's neat to have a leader who is that. Then until he sees the baby.
Yeah.
Then he goes a completely different direction.
Well, and again, that fits it. I like that because we saw last issue where the man started coming back and Sir Terror started, getting sidelined.
Yeah.
The actor, the person he was before taking the potion, has started surfacing. That's why he wasn't in. He was trying to figure out stuff. And he sees the baby and he's like, oh no, we are going to take care of this kid. He's going to get put in the system. He'll be lost. He'll have nothing. We will take care of him. And again, it was one of those moments where it made me laugh because the funny nature of these villains taking on this little kid, and this kid's going to be raised in this villain group, made me chuckle. But also, it was one of those neat things that ties back to the human he was before all this stuff happened. So I was like, that was a really cool usage and a great way to show how he's coming back, how his person's coming back.
So,
and I do also want to note, I love editor notes, and especially when they're like saying, oh, hell no, and they have it should be pronounced hell no.
Yeah, that was great. Looking at Lizzie's situation and what happened there, we've got proof positive with this cat, right? So this cat's been through the treatment, and look at how good the cat is right now. The problem is he's giving her a dose, right? Just the smallest dose to see how she reacts. She's like, these injections are amazing. I'm feeling, since time's passed, I'm feeling more response in my legs than I can ever remember. Can we keep going? Can we double the dosage? Now, this is the danger. We are now doubling the dosage. We're doing things that have not been tested on a human. And I'm, let's take the animal testing ethics out of it for a second, right? That's set that in its own separate lane. But we don't know the impact of doubling the dose. We don't know the impact of now putting her in this tank. These are all things we are doing these experiments without knowing what the end result's going to be, other than the fact that when we've used smaller doses, we've seen positives. So we don't know side effects. We don't know how else is going to happen. He dumps her into something, this vat, for 36 hours. I feel like he went and did other things during those 36 hours. Like he went out with friends, he was watching television. He was not monitoring what was going on. Because, I don't know, wouldn't you have seen her gradually turning into this?
Yeah. And here's the other thing. Again, it goes to that brilliance, arrogance, thinks he knows everything.
Yes.
And it's that classic super villain, super intellect weakness that they have. Now, you and I, what we would have done is we would have kept doing a single dose. Maybe I would have increased the dosage to see how she's responding to it. Mm-hmm. If I would have gone with the vat, I would have said, okay, let's put you in for an hour. Let's see how you're feeling after an hour. I wouldn't have done 36 hours. I'm like, dude, come on.
Jim, if it was you in the vat, I would have had one of our other friends watching.
Oh, okay.
And they could have texted me. I mean, it would have been one of those things. I would have, depending on where I was at in the movie, I would have sped back right away to, make sure you were okay. At the very least, I wouldn't have watched another movie.
Oh, okay, I appreciate it.
I mean, it's just 36 hours. I mean, it's like sitting there, like some of this is unconscionable. I get it if you're in the middle of something, especially if you're doing a triple threat marathon. I mean, I'm assuming you watched all the Back to the Futures or something like that, or did the Lord of the Rings. I get it. Dude's got to pass 36 hours somehow. But you don't, what do you interrupt, for this type of thing? It's only your girlfriend in a vat. I mean, this is so Fletcher though, right? It tells you the psychotic arrogance. And you're right on the arrogance part of this guy. There is a piece where he is convinced he knows what's right and what's going to work. And his horror, when he's like, "Dear Lord, what have I done to you?" He's like, "I'll cure you. We'll do it again however many times it takes." So we think what's going to solve this problem right now is let's dip her in there again and see if it comes out right the next time.
I know.
I mean, no.
Yeah, I think that's the big problem there. Again, I'm like, dude, come on. But the funny thing is, this perfectly makes sense for this character.
Yes.
And I love that. I love when you get a moment in the comics when you're just like, dude, why would you even think that? Oh, no, I get why now. You 100% see that. We've already seen examples where he kind of just throws rationality out the window. It's partially, due to that, the weirdo chemical that he took, that turned him into Fletcher. Partially, there's a little bit of the guy as well. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. The person he was originally doesn't know what he was doing. So, you add to it this arrogance that thinks, oh, yeah, I know everything right. I can fix this. Oh, let me just do it again. No, you don't do it again, dude. But it fits, and I love that. I love seeing that this isn't the end product that we're staring at right now. There was a couple more dips. There was a couple more experimentations that he did to really turn her into the Lizzie we're used to.
The shopping experience when they're going for baby gear. When we got, Punchline and Uzi. I didn't know I needed a Punchline and Uzi team up until I saw this. The interplay of the dialogue between the two of them is so great. Doesn't take any of the danger out of it, but adds a layer of personality to them. And this was something that was really, really well needed at this point to just add another interest for me for these characters. What's the difference between training pants and diapers? No clue. This says 50% softer, just like you, Uzi. I just loved those dialogue sequences. They were great. Even when they're checking out the line, where they're sitting there saying, "I'm Claudio." Again, they're introducing their clown company and that type of thing. We do weddings, political rallies, funerals, the whole bit. And then he looks at Mildred and goes, "Also fetish. Am I reading you right, Mildred?" And he's talking to this older woman. And, "Ma'am, you are entitled to smack him right in the nose. That's included with the service." I just really loved the dialogue because sometimes when you write humorous dialogue like that, it comes off as awkward, right? You don't feel the natural flow to it. This was Buddy Cop. It was the best of Buddy Cop. I love that kind of interplay. It comes from the best of action movies when you've got two characters that are played by strong actors who have a chemistry. And you feel the interplay like these really are two guys who are friends hanging out and bantering. It's the only way that you get that. And this had every element of that in play. I really, really enjoyed that.
Oh, God, yeah. It is funny. One of the things I do like is that, Punchline's, when they do the dialogue with him, it's that blue tint with the little squiggly around it. So it's got a different tone to it.
Yes.
And I'm always trying to figure out what exactly kind of tone, is it that is it just his natural vibe, or did Fletcher do something when he pumped them full of the chemicals that changed it? Does he have a constant Batman voice going on?
Oh, I think so. I think it's that. I think there's a power behind it, right?
Yeah. And I love that. And again, I love how he's more friendly with the people because we're getting more of his personality coming through. Mm-hmm. And Uzi, I don't think Fletcher ever did any augmentation to Uzi. I think this is just who this guy is. I think he's just a little off his rocker naturally.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you don't know. I mean, I actually would like to know more of Uzi's backstory. And it's something that I really like about as you're reading it. It's like you want that backstory, but I feel like they've been doing a really good job of spotlighting people gradually along the way. Because usually you don't want to derail the ongoing narrative to all of a sudden do everybody's origin. Mm-hmm. So I think they're doing a really, really good job of spotlighting people in the right ways, and it's working. But that's me totally agreeing with you that I want to know more about these characters, not just like the small origins. Like, it was great with Fletcher to get the opening piece and then come back later to Lizzie. Like, I wanted to know more as it was going on. And it makes more sense to be focusing on Fletcher and Lizzie right now and their backstories. So that part worked. Nikki, the bathtub, where she is kind of reflecting now. And it kind of goes to what you were saying earlier about Sir Terror, right? Vince. There is kind of now this balance that they seem to be achieving, those of them that had the potion, where the person they were before and the person they've become are kind of becoming an amalgamation. There's a connection between them. She's playing through, I'm ever so lucky to be alive, but it feels a lot more like this is Nikki who's having this conversation with herself, where she's recognizing the changes that has gone on in her, that she's her in these moments, but yet the tap dance killer's gone nowhere. And I really like this kind of, it's a journey, I think, in this series, this particular series, for her to find balance with who she is now, and not completely letting go of who she was before. I love this kind of piece because I felt like with the Apama issues, and then into the beginning of this, it was Nikki's gone, and it's the tap dance killer. Now we've got something different going on, and I really, really find it intriguing. And that it's actually made her a much more interesting character, even though she didn't need that. She already was intriguing.
Yeah, it's, again, where does one stop, where does one start? It's the fluidity of her becoming the tap dance killer becoming Nikki.
Right.
We're getting more to the point where it's not going to be which one is now in the driver's seat. There's only going to be one person. And I think that is kind of it's her kind of realization that she's coming to, that all this stuff is weird. She's like, I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I doing this? But it's so natural. It seems right. It's not, and she's starting to get that groove and that vibe. And I love that realization. And I love this, how we had a nice calm before the storm. Her in the bathtub relaxing. And then, the Henry's saying, hey, Fletcher's got a demonstration for you and Vincent in the lab. He's like, okay, give me an hour. And the power of the page, you flip the page, starting off Vincent Reed's parents' home, boom, no more. And I love the opening salvo right there. And then it goes into the chaos of Nikki, of Lizzie here.
So we got to go to the part that happened with Vincent Reed's parents, because this is something where when you're talking about gang warfare, right? Mob warfare, all that kind of stuff. Where are you going to start striking? Well, first thing you want to do is, if you're going after Nikki and she's protected by this family, the best place to go is to break down the head of the family, Sir Terror. And the best way to do that is you're taking out those closest to him. Now you're putting him off kilter. He's not thinking straight. He's not planning the way that Sir Terror now has become known as a strategist, right? He's put together. That's why he was so angry at them when things went wrong, because they took it upon themselves to start acting, and it was not what he wanted or how he wanted it to go. Well, now you got a situation where let's take that strategy element completely out of the game. And blowing up the parents' house is a catalyst, right? It's a change agent. And that's something was really interesting. Then we flipped to Lizzie being reintroduced to the whole gang. And it's interesting because he wants to give them a demonstration. They never really get there because she is throwing out not close and using Sir Terror as the guinea pig. Tap Dance Killer steps in right away. I loved Nikki's motion in this. Nikki doesn't know what's going on. So Nikki is immediately stepping in and protecting. She is reading the dance and she's moving fluidly against it. I really liked seeing the fight between the two of them. I thought it was a great battle. Lizzie and her skill set was shown. And Lizzie's just kind of basically saying, Nikki, say you're sorry. Because Lizzie wasn't doing anything wrong here other than trying to demonstrate that, like, no, I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm in full control. She just can't articulate it. Right. Not in those rational thoughts. I loved every bit of the chaos of this. It felt like the best of like Marvel Team Up and Brave and the Bold when heroes inevitably, and they're villains in this case, which makes it more chaotic, but the inevitable fighting for no reason, ultimately to realize that you have the same goal. This is one of those moments, and it worked so well here. I wanted more.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, and I like the demonstration was supposed to be the bottles. You can see Fletcher saying, no, Lizzie, the bottles. But she was doing not close to Sir Terror. Right. And that started the whole chaos. And again, part of it, if Fletcher had actually explained before unveiling Nick and before unveiling Lizzie, this could have been avoided. Or if Lizzie had, not gone after Sir Terror, but gone after the bottles, this could have been avoided. But again, it's a great usage of the chaos, the great usage of what, Lizzie doesn't have full control of what she's doing and saying. Well, she has full control of what she's doing. She just can't articulate it. And I love that. And I love seeing the fight going on and the breakdown. And then, right in the middle of all the chaos, the master of good timing, horrible news, Vincent, your parent has been destroyed. The other targets could be Nikki. So I'm like, oh, right in the middle of all this craziness, we got even more bad news.
Right. Ultimately, when Nikki arrives at her house, I actually liked that they drove there together. The lights are the key. The door jam's been busted. And they go in and they basically see that somebody's been taken. It's left with the cliffhanger of, Nikki, you got to turn yourself in. The pacing of this series has been phenomenal. I mean, this is another one of those cliffhangers where issue 3 into issue 4 had an amazing cliffhanger. This had an amazing cliffhanger where cliffhangers in comics are something we're very used to, right? I mean, that's part of what you do in comics to draw people into the next issue. These cliffhangers matter. Like, I really want to read the next issue afterwards. That's not always the case with every cliffhanger. I'm not saying that I don't want to read the next issue, but I don't feel that, like, there's certain cliffhangers that are special, that they hit you and they make you go, I've got to read that now. Like, it needs to be here now. These were I've got to read it now cliffhangers. Everyone, there's ones that mildly make me go, okay, I want to continue reading the issue. And a lot of times it's just that I'm enjoying the big ongoing story. I want to keep reading. That's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it being more of a calmly paced cliffhanger. These are ones where, I want to see what Nikki... At this point, we've established this relationship between her and the Romeros where I want to see the end battle between them. And this is leading to something that I've wanted to see all along. I really loved that when I saw this cover, Nikki St. Clair surrenders. I'm like, what? How? Where is this going? It's a beautiful cover. And it made me just immediately want to turn the page to what was going on with... I didn't know what it was going to be, because the issues sometimes have started out in places I didn't expect. This one did exactly what it was supposed to do. It dropped me right where I wanted to be right here and now. Show me what's been happening.
Yeah. And something, again, these covers have all been, just spot on. Sometimes it's got a little bit of humor in it, like the one with Punchline and Nikki where she's pushing him off the cover saying, hey, stop hogging the spotlight. You've got the Wizard of, I call it the Wizard of Oz cover because it's all of them just frolicking along, This one, again, is one of those things. She's got that dramatic pose. She's like, Nikki St. Clair surrenders, and you're just like, oh boy, what's she going to do here? How's she going to get out of this?
So Carlotta, who has been our biggie in this one, has got Nikki's mom, and she's waiting for the tap dance killer to show up. I like that Nikki recognizes, I just can't surrender and go in there, because here's the thing, the trade and refusal and those pieces, there's no guarantee in this type of world that, like, if you surrender yourself, that mom's going to go walk away, right? You know, how much do you trust Carlotta to do anything that she says she's going to do? So I actually really like the idea of getting together with Gaspard and making a plan. I like that he's just Gaspard, kind of like Cher, Madonna. That was a great editor's note. But I didn't know what was in there, what was in this like case that he put together for her. Man, this gimmick was pretty cool. She put together a whole design scheme for something that would enable her to sneak weapons in. And I really loved how this was all put together. It was another costume design thing, taking advantage of her theater background mixed with this tap dance killer mentality. Like, you see how tap dance killer really is Nikki, and how much they really have become this symbiotic relationship. It's kind of like Venom to a certain extent in what's happened with these two. And I really like it. I mean, it was something that it's really worked.
Well, the thing, again, with this, Nikki come up with a plan. I love that they show her going over plan after plan. No, that one doesn't work. That wasn't work. And then when she starts telling the team the plan, they're all saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And each one, I understand the reasoning behind it. We're seeing Sir Terror, more of Vince is coming out. And he's like, we got to take care of this kid. And he's starting to lose his criminal edge. He lost his family. Nikki's mom's been kidnapped. He's starting to realize that he's not Sir Terror. And I love that he's starting to have the crisis of conflict.
Do you really think he's thinking that he's not Sir Terror?
I think the Vincent Reed persona is getting stronger in these moments. I think, again, Nikki is getting more meshed together, and Fletcher is more meshed together. I think Vincent's still a combination. He's still later in this issue, we get the meshing of them coming together. But I think Vincent Reed is starting to take a stronger role right here in this sequence. And I think it's the trauma of his parents, the trauma of Nikki getting captured, the thought of raising this little kid. All these things are pulling out Vincent Reed and kind of sidelining Sir Terror.
When you go to Vegas and catch a losing streak, you hit the brakes or risk losing it all. There's some of those are Sir Terror lines that are in there.
Hold on. Sir Terror's there, 100%. But I think Vincent Reed's more in the driver's seat, because Sir Terror would recognize Nikki's plan and say, 100%, let's rock and roll. Vincent Reed is kind of like, driving Sir Terror right now. Whereas, it usually is Sir Terror in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I definitely agree it's an amalgamation. I agree with you on that piece. I'm not saying that Vincent Reed isn't part of the... They are all going through the same thing. Punchline, I think, is another great example of being both characters. Where we're seeing elements of both in there. Actually, the point where one of the next series is Punchline and the Vaudevillains. It's something that I can't wait to reread after this. This got me jonesing to reread that.
Yeah.
I agree with you that there's an amalgamation piece there. Sir Terror's still there. You're right. I think it's defining the balance piece. It's what we're saying about Nikki, right?
Right.
So how much of the balance is shifted to Vincent? I see your point. It could be more where we are seeing more Vincent than we are seeing Sir Terror. But that's kind of normal with people in general, isn't it? We all have personality traits that become dominant or more passive, depending on the circumstances that we're in. And, sometimes when life smacks you down, some of your other qualities shift into the background just because you've got that more in the forefront. Yeah. So, and that's Sir Terror's dealing with the smackdown. The blow up of the house in Chagrin Falls was meant to do this, and it's having an effect. Carlotta knew what she was doing.
Yes. Well, and here's the other thing, just going along with the line, again, one of the lines when Sir Terror's talking to the little kids, like, oh, sure like that marmalade, don't you? Always been a favorite of mine, too. Comes from the farmer's market at Ridgefield. Mm-hmm. You know? So that right there, that's Vincent. You know, and that's why I'm saying there's, you know, Vincent's in the driver's seat right now. Sir Terror's still there. Because, again, that whole line of you catch a losing streak, you hit the brakes. That's 100% Sir Terror. You know, but I think, you know, again, it's that whole, you know, where, you know, when Nikki was in the bathtub last issue, she really started melding the two together. You know, Vincent hasn't had his melding moment. He has it later in this issue where Sir Terror and Vincent kind of meld into one and start becoming it. I think he's still a separate entity right now.
Except that was Sir Terror saying we're putting on the brakes. That's where I'm struggling with you on this one. Sir Terror's saying we're putting on the brakes because of the whole Vegas line is him saying in the driver's seat, he's saying we're putting on the brakes right now because he doesn't want to lose anybody else. There's a Sir Terror element driving that ship there.
Okay, Sir Terror is going to be in there, but I think again, to me this reads more like Vincent than Sir Terror. Whereas there have been moments that read more 100% Sir Terror. You know, ever since that his interaction when he starts sparking, you know, Vincent starting coming to the surface, we're seeing more of Vincent in there.
Except here's he's saying, wait, I'm sorry, Nikki, I've decided we're not going to do anything. He's still taking the leadership role right there, and he's saying that he's decided that. He's not saying, I don't know what to do, I'm distraught or anything like that. He's still taking the lead here. It's a very interesting line. Yeah. With this one. And I think it's I actually love the fact that we're having a debate over this because it shows how complex these characters are. And I don't know if there's a clean answer to this, but I think the debate's a valid one. It shows the complexity of what's being done here with the insides of these characters. Like, who really is this guy now? What does that look like? And I actually like I don't know that there's a right or wrong of this as much as it shows the complexity. I think Carlotta made a mistake.
Oh, big time.
Because here's the thing. In taking Sir Terror a little bit out of the game right now, you've left an angry Nikki to make the plan.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, Nikki's plan is, I think, brilliant. And I like that she knew, like she's having the conversation with the guys, she can't wait around. She's like pulling her hair. She can't wait around to vote on a plan. She's basically like, this is the plan. I am going to make the plan. If these two are going to hold me up because of this, then I am going to go ahead and just make a plan, give them a note and tell them what to do. And I'm going to count on the fact that hopefully they are going to just go along with the plan. Because she's like, sorry, it's my mom. This is the plan. And I will not be negotiating any of the terms. The performance of my life is about to commence. I need to focus my energy on the role. No distractions. And I like that even at that moment, she was like, oh no, I haven't caught Jonelle in 2 days.
Yeah.
That part was really just, everything was great. Punchline, reading this plan, I love that we don't know what the plan is yet. He's reading it over and he's like, hell no, this is her plan. Even Uzi's saying, that chick is crazy.
When you get Uzi calling you crazy, mm-hmm. You know there's something going on. And that, again, I love the fact that they did it this way. Mm-hmm. You know, because again, it built up the anticipation as to what is Nikki's plan. Mm-hmm. You know, when you've got multiple people saying, "Oh, this is nuts," even she in her dialogue, she's saying, "This is the performance of a lifetime. I need to focus all my energy on this role." You know, I love just that she's getting ready. It's her plan, but she's even saying, "Okay, this is it. This is go time." You know, you have that moment of preparation, and then you get to the starting the plan, and I love when she first pulls in and she gets out on in the crutches with the cast on her leg. Because we all know she doesn't need a cast on her leg. I'm like, oh, that is brilliant. Oh, that is cool. Then they do a close-up of her face and they see her face is all busted up. I'm like, that's makeup. That's got to be. Because we just saw her a minute ago and she was fine. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Yes, absolutely. I think she even refers to it as high noon when she shows up there. And I love that feeling of high noon. Like it's almost like a gunfight, go gunslinger gunfight. And this really was the performance of a lifetime because we as the readers, there's times where I like when we as the readers don't know what's going to happen I like it even more when we're in and riding along with the person. We know that Nikki's up to something. I also love that she's got this costume that she's using right now, and the crutch is there for a reason, but the one damage that she's dealing with is that shoulder.
Yeah.
And I like that she references the fact that the pain that she's feeling right now is in the shoulder as she's trying to mimic the fact that she needs crutches right now. I like those little details where we do learn the reality of what is actually hurting on her versus what she's showing to basically her audience in this particular scenario. This is so brilliantly played.
Yeah. Well, I love just how she's playing it off, really, even how much injured she is.
Yes.
And she's going on and like, oh, you don't have any elevators? Well, if one of you could carry me, it'd be a lot quicker. And just she's going on. And then it was funny because something I forgot about her was that rhythmic speaking hypnotic stuff.
Yeah.
And you see her, you start reading this and you start going through and, it's, you figure it out later on in the story. But again, I love just how she's starting from the very beginning. From the very beginning of this, she's coming in weak. She's making him think, oh, she's not a threat. Because this place is wall-to-wall with guns. So first thing she's got to do is she's got to get them to lower their guard. She's got to get them to just make things easy. Oh, she's weak. She's helpless. We don't have to worry about her. And I love just how she's laying it on, and she's laying it on thick, but she's not laying it on so thick that it seems unrealistic. She's got the wound. She's got the injury. She's, the way they're doing her voice, the lettering on her voice makes it sound like it's weak and timid. It's absolutely brilliant.
The Don is an interesting one because she's playing him, which is really, really important because the Don's brought in really to rough her up. That's Carlotta's, trump card, like the big guns have now been brought in. She's going to convince the Don what this girl has done and, the atrocities she's done. So now she's really going to pay, right? Instead, she's looking at as just some kind of junkie. And he's like, if your guys were taken out by this junkie, like they kind of deserved what they got out of this scenario. Like what's going on here? This is almost... She is playing this performance up so well. And it's all about buying time. So that way, hopefully, Sir Terror and the whole gang will get their act together. Punchline being the voice of reason. When he goes to speak to Vince. Vince, do you know about Nikki's plan? Punchline's the one that's like waking him up. It's almost the slap to the face. I know you've been hurt and all that kind of stuff. But listen, when you get hit, you make sure you're in the clear, then you hit back harder. I like that, this is the boxer mentality, but also he understands how to wake up a mob boss a little bit in this. And we see him snap back into full-on, like, Sir Terror mode.
Yes.
I really like the way that played out. We shouldn't be cheering for these guys because they're bad guys. But, man, are they fun to cheer for.
Yep. Oh, God, yeah. And again, everything you said, I 100% agree with. I love how, is Punchline who's snapping him out of it. I love that we get Sir Terror back. And then you flip the page and you start seeing Nikki doing what Nikki's doing.
Yes.
And again, it goes back to that rhythmic voice, that tap dance, hypnosis that we saw in the very first issue where she got the guard to unlock the cell door. Just by talking. And I love how they show the clock in the background showing that time is passing, and actually, how long she's been at this. And she's just been going on. And, by the end there, you start seeing the little musical notes tied into it so that, it's been just her groove, that little side power that she has. And I love, again, going back to something from issue 1, now we're in issue 5, she's in full swing. This was the plan all along, and the fact that little notes saying that she can read the biorhythms. The longer she's with somebody, the more she can sense, the more state of relax she can get them going. And she just starts going on, and it's just the continuation. Nikki isn't just this physical killer. She's not just the tap dance killer. She's got this little side power. And I love how they're actually using it here, and they're going through, and she's just, again, retelling the story to them, but she's using it to hypnotize them. Gets them to the point where they're completely everything over, and then it's time for the main event. I'm like, yes, all right.
When this continues on and we get to see the reveal, I actually loved Gaspar's design, right? Because that's one of the things when you get to see the main event kick in, there's something clever about the way everything breaks away. Mm-hmm. Like the sprong pieces, and when you get to see what that looks like, it just was... He's almost like the Q of their group.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Bond fan, and I loved seeing that. This action sequence was absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's everything about it that was perfect. There is a sequence where Nikki, after the whole thing's done, Nikki goes out the window, and you see her toe pointing, her leg pointing. It, again, is like a dance motion, but it looks vicious at the same time. It's interesting to take something so beautiful and yet make it so poetic in how it rolls out. And it was something that's really well done in the artwork, is keeping the motion of dance looking deadly. And it worked really well in this. When Punchline and the gang come bursting through with their car, that part was something that I really liked as well, because there were so many ways that I saw that going down. The car bursting through felt like an old action movie in its presentation, and I just love sequences like that when the two of them get out and we get to see that. It led to one of our fluid panels, where we got to see Nikki, basically her body in the tap dance killer motion, being the separator for multiple panels. I really loved the beauty of that panel. I just thought it was really, really cool. Also, the choice of, because she had to wear a cast on that one leg, the fact that the costume had to be modified in order to allow for her to have that tap dance killer style leg covering, but she doesn't have a boot on that foot because of the fact that she had a cast on. I just loved the artistic choice of, what is this going to look like when the cast comes off? Gearing the whole rest of the issue and the action and the artistic motion based on that fact. I just thought it worked really well, versus the cast bursts off and she's got her normal gear on underneath. It doesn't really fit with the fact that you're putting on a performance. I just loved those little details. I think are something that add a realism to this that just really stuck out for me.
I was about to add on to that comment with that. I love the fact that her one she has a bare foot. And if you look at all the pages from then on, the art team really kept, hold of that, making sure the 1 foot has to be a bare foot.
Yes.
And they did that throughout that. It's a brilliant art continuity, that, again, we have a brilliant, beautiful fluid page here. I'm loving this, but I also love the dialogue. Nikki St. Clair came here to surrender, and that's precisely what she's doing. Her full surrender to her role as the tap dance killer. And you get that close-up of her face with a boom right there. So once again, we have full confirmation. Nikki and tap dance are one and the same now. This is Nikki. This is who she is full time. No more duality going on there. This is a 100% meshing. And I love that we got, again, in such a brilliant page, we have that final true 100% declaration.
I liked her posse showing up too.
Yeah.
And getting some great sequences. And I'm glad that Lizzie was brought in to the fray. Just shows a chance for her to be used in the field.
Yeah.
Sir, go ahead.
Hey, yeah. If Fletcher can control her, and she doesn't attack her team, she's an absolute terror.
Yes. Sir Terror's fight with the Don was great, because you could have left him in the background, Sir Terror, and not really finished his arc. We needed to see his arc continue on as well. The Dented Crown, it was a gift without flaw, a gift from Fletcher, an exquisite sleek design, stainless polished steel with a razor brim. I just loved that, because the Don's having his way with him. I like that Sir Terror never gave up during the whole fight. It was something that really stuck out for me. I wanted to see his arc continue, where we're seeing Nikki come to terms with who she is and kind of finding that balance. I think we see it here with Sir Terror, and I really loved it.
Yes. Oh, 100%. This is, again, the meshing of Sir Terror and Vincent. because the Don's beating the crud out of him because, again, the Don is a true killer.
Right.
Vincent Reed is not a killer. Sir Terror is, but Vincent Reed is not. And depending on who's in charge, how things are going, it's what you can get the drop on. Right here, just like we saw with Nikki, where they're becoming full mesh, this is him becoming full mesh. We saw it earlier start to happen when Punchline, gave him his wake-up call. We started seeing Sir Terror come out and, join into, become in the driver's seat, become a meshing. I'm not 100% certain, but again, we start seeing it. Here again, we're seeing that again with the killer in Sir Terror becoming the primary. Becoming, Vincent and Sir Terror being one and the same now. And I love just how this played out because everything you said, where he's just, beating on him. Any last words, pretty boy? Because the Don is just beating on him, saying you're nothing. You're just a sham. You're not a real killer. Well, he showed him he is a real killer, and I love that.
I'm going to caution you a little bit on that with Vincent, though. Think back to Vincent's preference and roles. He always preferred the villain.
Right.
So how much of Sir Terror was him being able to finally embrace something that was hidden in him all along? You don't know in that scenario, but it's a piece with Vincent that why were these particular people so susceptible to become these characters? Is there something latent that was in them all along? We talked about this with Fletcher, right? Did Claws off his wife? And what did that look like? That was, wasn't that before Fletcher?
Yeah. Oh, Claws killed his wife before Fletcher. And I 100% believe he did off his wife, because, again, you go back to the funeral scene where he's like, he didn't want a autopsy because she didn't have any family. She didn't have any, and he didn't want him to cut up his beloved wife, and we're like, I think he probably poisoned her. And made it look like an accident and killed her off. So there was a bit of a killer psychopath in Klaus before this. And Again, Vincent Reed really enjoyed playing the villain role, so maybe there was a little bit of a villain in him. And we know Nikki had the showmanship. The tap dance killer, the showmanship, the star, that kind of stuff is who she was before any of this happened. So there's a little bit of that in her. So there is something about them going full on into these characters. But there is a little bit of the influence of the chemicals. That's one of the things that make them such brilliant villains, because it is kind of hard to say, with some of them, like with Nikki and Punch-Out. It's very hard to say that they are full-on villains because they're not really killing innocent people. Klaus and Sir Terror maybe would be able to kill innocent people. Well, Klaus definitely can. We know that for a fact.
Maybe can.
What?
Maybe can. He's done it multiple times.
Right, I know, yeah.
Then does horrible things to them after they die.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. He's definitely is there.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those neat things about
I'm pretty sure he killed Lizzie. Did Lizzie survive that 36 hours? I don't know. What do you do? Does that survive?
That I would say is more of an accident than intentional murder. That's involuntary homicide, not murder.
Yeah. It's still... Ugh.
It's still nasty. Well, hold on. We're all in agreement. Fletcher Klaus is there. He's full on evil. He reached the evil status.
Yeah.
Nikki and Punchline are the two that are questionable. Sir Terror is another questionable. But as these characters go on, they're embracing more of that. They're pulling that more into them.
This is what I loved about Secret Six.
Yeah.
It's creepy, it's fun, it's icky, it's all the feels. It's funny, these are characters that you care about that in some ways you shouldn't. And I like that. I mean, it's uncomfortably exciting at the same time. It's a book that pushes the edge, and I really enjoy that about this. I love when Claus is working on Imogene. We got Nikki's mother who's died. Right? She died. Am I getting it right?
100% died. The final words were, "I love you, Nick."
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't get the full thing out there. She's 100% dead as a doornail. And I love Lizzie's like, I know, Fletcher fix. I'm like, no, No, let her. We'll bury her. We'll honor her, and we'll remember her. Fletcher is not touching her in any way, shape, or form. Should have been what Nikki said.
Yes. So she's letting this happen. Like, I don't know. Turn over to your right and take a look at Lizzie and say, do I want this guy doing anything to my mom's body? So when she comes out, I don't know, that first visual there, we knew right away something is a bit wrong. Look at those crazy eyes.
Yeah.
But the thing that wasn't a throwaway is a spirit garden in the hour of eternity where silence returns. What? No, violence returns. Shh. Violence is her name. Violent is her name. You know, and obviously this is going back to what happened with Fletcher before, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing a little bit of a tease of Violante. I guess I'm sure that's how you pronounce it. I'm making a guess right now, but I guess that would be her return, right? I love the tease of this to that. Carlotta still being alive at the end and being the prisoner of Sir Terror, I think, was something very, very interesting. Because Sir Terror now is fully, I guess, in Soul Terror mode. He's like taking a look at how he can use Carlotta to get everything that he wants, right? You know, This is another informational source, so that way, I guess he can go after the Romero what's left of the Romero family, right?
Yeah, this is 100% take, because you think back to when he was sitting there saying, we messed up when they were driving to Nikki's parents' house. Mm-hmm. And he's like, we messed up. We should have taken them all out when we had the chance. You know, this is now going back to that. This is now Sir Terror is like, he's going to take out all of them. You know, they're going to take out their organization. Anybody with the last name Romero is a goner. Yeah, he goes back to, Don Corleone, you got to take out every member of the Corleone family. And they missed one, and he came back later and took care of them. It's the whole, you can't leave one of them left. She's going to sing like a bird about all of them. And he's going to start taking them out. And now we're actually going to see Sir Terror being full driver's seat, because I see a lot of innocent people who are going to get killed solely because their last name is Romero. And I think that is a brilliant way to set up what could come through the future. Now, one of the things, Paige, I want to go back to, if you don't mind, when they're sitting there waiting for, Nikki, waiting for the mom, waiting for Fletcher to do his thing. Mm-hmm. One, I love how it starts off her in the costume, that it shifts to her in regular clothes, that it shows the whole group there sitting there. And I love seeing Punchline without his makeup. He still has the blue hair, because that's his hair, but they took off the Punchline makeup, and it's just him sitting there. And I thought that was kind of a neat thing to show, again, them out of costume. Sir Terror has the face paint off of him, and he's got regular, regular face. Just his normal look to him, as he's reading to the kid, where the wild things are, which is a great book for kids. But I love just that, that kind of out of costume, them sitting as they're waiting for Fletcher to do their thing. I thought that was a really neat panel to throw in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. It just gives you a sense of, it gives you an example of great character development, that there's a lot of character in that story. That was something that was just a great part of this whole thing. I actually found myself looking at the end of the letters page, because one of the things they do really well there is kind of give you some background. They call it curtain call in this one. And there's a nice little piece about the creative team. They're talking about their release schedule, because when this was released, Apama 12 was going to be next. And then there was going to be a 3-issue series, Bloom, which is already out at this point. And they're saying a brand new character who will be in her own single issue one-shot. But a brand new threat is coming for the Vaudevillains from a supernatural place, which is leading to Punchline, right? Punchline, yeah. The Vaudevillains. There's been a lot that has come since we did this one. The reason we picked this story right now is it's something we had the advantage of talking about ages ago with Ted Sikora for his Kickstarter campaign. And we got a chance to read a couple of preview issues of it. And I just fell in love with Tap Dance Killer. We've never done on this show as we've been kind of doing this rotation of DC, Marvel, and trying to sneak in some independents and things like that, just because with this version 2.0 of the show, it's been kind of a celebration of all comics. This was a good story to go back to and really do the origins and the Apama issues straight on through to the end of this story. If you haven't gotten a chance to grab the trade, the collected edition of this one, there is a nice part. It's called Putting It Together by Ted Sikora that goes through how a tap dance killer page is formed. I love, he uses a screenplay program called Fade In that he's using for the scripting of this. I love learning more about the process. I just think it's something that's really interesting to see how all of this comes together, because it isn't a simple process. I think your creators that really care about this, they put a lot of care into developing a style of storytelling and how to convey messaging, not just for themselves, but they have to work very closely with an artistic team in order to make sure that everybody is on the same page on the scenes that are being developed. You are, the same way that you would do this for film, you are doing this. And to see people, the way that they've actually laid out what some of this looks like, it was cool. You know, it's, he said, when creating layouts, it's also a ginormous help to have my dear dramatic daughter throw down poses at the drop of a hat. And I really like seeing stuff like that, where some of these poses were created because of the fact that we actually had somebody act them out. I'm a big fan of classic Disney. And when you take a look at how some of the animation was done using real animals and real people in order to capture some of those sequences, this goes back to what was done the best in animation. You know, these are techniques that just work. This was a very special series. I'm glad we had a chance to do it.
Oh, God. And again, we briefly mentioned Bloom. 100% recommend that to anybody. Pick that up.
Yes.
It's absolutely brilliant. I loved it. So, you know, and again, I always throw out Apama to anybody if you want to read it. Apama's a great, series. It's that same groovy style that, he's got going on, where it's that brilliant blend. There's some real life stuff. There's some comedic moments. There's some hero moments. There's just that great, it's a love of the character, a love of the comics, a love of just, of this really comes through. So 100% always recommend Apama to anybody, Bloom to anybody, and, when Punchline's out, that's another one.
Jim, I want to give a quick shout out to Comic Geek Speak, who is celebrating this weekend, actually, their 20th anniversary of their show. And they're foundationally one of the reasons why Raging Bullets exists. We were very lucky very early on in the days and age of podcasting. I came across Comic Geek Speak. I was getting into podcasting. I realized, oh my gosh, there's an opportunity to listen to people talk about comic books. So I jumped on. It was the early days when it was just Brian and Peter just getting started on the show. There was just something about it that just resonated with me. They were being authentic. They were just being them. I felt like I was hanging out with friends, and they conveyed that so through the show. And I was glued. I was absolutely hooked. They allowed, eventually, as the show was going on, listener submissions, and I had an opportunity they did Stump the Rios. I had an opportunity to send one of those in. And what I ended up finding was it started, basically their allowing submissions got me wanting to do more. I had reached out during that time to Peter Rios and had said that I want to do more. I wanted to do something that was different, though, because this was in the early days. There weren't a lot of comics podcasts out there. So I wanted our show to be something that added something versus filling something that was already in place at the time. Nobody was really doing company focused at the time. It was really a coin toss. Indie Spinner Rack, I think, was either already out or was in the process. So I didn't want to do indies because of the fact that they were already going to do that. So I'm like, well, then it's DC or Marvel, and let's try to do something like that. And I really chose, because at the time, DC was, and kind of always has been in recent years, the underdog, over DC and Marvel. I went with the underdog. And I was glad that we did it. And that's what led to the birth of Raging Bullets. Peter was really instrumental on helping me get where we wanted to make the show. And Ian Levinstein was also really helpful in that. Ian was doing a podcast called Geek Speak at the time. It was actually a radio show that he was doing at the time as well. He had me on as a guest. Comic Geek Speak, I want to reference back again, though. One of the things that they developed very, very quickly was a community around their podcast. The support of other podcasts that they did at the time was something you didn't have to do. When you think about it, it's very easy when you're doing a creative endeavor to be competitive and to not want to help the other guy. And I really appreciated the fact that they had us on the show multiple times. They shouted us out organically multiple times. Helped us to gain some notice and an audience base. You can do that on your own. I'm confident in the fact that we would have generated an audience base. I got to say, you sure generated a lot quicker and to a much broader scope when you've got somebody established like Comic Geek Speak that was kind enough to shout you out. These guys have always been good to us. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to drive out to PA many times for events that they've had. I couldn't go this weekend. I had something going on yesterday that was a major conflict, and I was really bummed because of the fact that attending any event and just being able to see those guys, and in many ways thank them, because we're celebrating 19 years, and actually we delayed it a week because we had to delay this episode a week. We're celebrating 19 years of podcasting next week. It was pretty much a year later after Comic Geek Speak had developed that Raging Bullets got started. And I'm endlessly grateful to Comic Geek Speak for helping us get where we are today. And Peter Rios in particular. By the way, I'm not diminishing anybody else in the crew over there, but Peter and I had many conversations outside of podcasts where Peter was helping kind of guide what this became and helping me kind of figure out what I wanted a podcast to be. Endlessly grateful to those guys. Congratulations on 20 years. 20 years of doing anything is an impressive feat. And the fact that those guys, the show's gone through a lot of iterations over the years, and it's something where that legacy of sticking around, Comic Geek Speak has made an impact on the comic book industry. It's made an impact on comic book podcasting. Think about how many podcasts are out there now. Comic Geek Speak was the forerunner of a lot of this and helped kick a lot of that off. Nowadays, Raging Bullets doesn't need to be a DC-only podcast because there's a lot of DC-only podcasts out there right now, and they're all great. I mean, they all have different flavors and things like that. So it's given us, actually 19 years in, some freedom to be able to say, well, we don't need to fill that gap anymore. We can talk about more and open the windows up. That's how we're able to do shows like this one about Tap Dance Killer today, because of the fact that we've been able to, after 19 years, do this season 2 and not give up our DC roots, because I love DC, but being able to talk about more things. I want to once again thank Comic Geek Speak for all the years of support. Congratulations to 20 years and many more of podcasting. Thank you for what you've done for the comic podcasting community. And honestly, I mentioned their community that they crafted around the show. When they started 20 years ago, I will say comics for me was very much an isolationist hobby. It was not something I shared with people. I didn't realize where I was at as a person during that time. There was a lot of things about me that I kind of just kept to myself versus kind of just embracing who you are and sharing it. Being able to therapeutically just enjoy my hobbies and interests with other like-minded people, it just helps you open up as a person, right? And that's something that is an added bonus to the community they've created. I think for a lot of us out there who found that it was hard to connect with like-minded people, I think nowadays you've been able to do it. 19 years later, we're doing a podcast doing this, but we've got such an extended group of friends that have come out of all of this. I'm endlessly grateful for that as well. So thank you for you that listen to us because of either Comic Geek Speak or because of the fact that just over the years through comic communities that you've jumped on this show, it's made this much more fun and much more rewarding. So thanks again. So like many podcasts, we're going to be moving from Skype to, I think, Microsoft Teams. And the reason being is all of our Skype contacts and everything will transfer over to that. In that process, we haven't come up with yet a voicemail solution for the show, but we're going to. What we do have on our show website right now is the ability for you to be doing a show topic request. I put a form that's in our show notes, and it's up on our website as well. It's just a simple Google form that gives you a chance to have a voice on where we're heading in the future. With this season 2, we've been doing a lot of story arc-based approaches. So we would like to know, what kind of things would you like us to talk about? We have some favorites we want to discuss, and we're certainly going to sneak those in because we're highly motivated to do those. But some of our best episodes have been ones that have been driven by listener recommendations. So certainly if there's something out there that you would like us to talk about, we will put it on the list. We've got a pretty stacked list right now, but that list isn't meant to be a list in order that we're doing. Those are things that we're wrapping our head around talking about. So certainly throw some things on our list that you would like us to discuss in the future of the podcast, and we will definitely put it under consideration. RagingBullets.com is our show website. That's where you can find details on upcoming show episode releases and any news about the podcasts. That links into X/Twitter and also into our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of a Facebook group community that I really appreciate the people that post there regularly. I look there all the time for news article, blog posts. Please feel free to shout out your podcast, your blog, things like that on there. I love the community aspect of the show, as I just mentioned with Comic Geek Speak, which we shouted out. One of the areas that brought us to the dance, that got us some notice, has been the collaboration and the way that they were generous enough to point people to us. And I always want to be able to pay that forward with others as well. So feel free to use us for that purpose. Our ragingbullets@gmail.com email address. If you want to get an audio comment on the show, please send them via email for right now. I am going to be putting a voicemail option back into service with the Skype transition. Our Skype phone number still works, so if you still use that, it does. But Skype is going to be ending in May, so I'm not shouting it out right now just because of the fact that I'm preparing people for the transition to something new. I'm going to put a voicemail back in place because I know sometimes it's easy for people to leave audio comments that way, and we do love having you part of the show. So audio comments are still a thing. Just send them via email for right now as a temporary measure if you would like them a part of the show. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seguin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
We have the 6th printing of Absolute Batman #1, 40% off, $2.99. Absolute Luthor Joker hardcover, 50% off, $62.50. And over on Dark Horse, we have 10,000 Ink Stains, a memoir of Jeff Lemire, 36% off, $31.99. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, some great books to shout out. Absolute Promethea Book 1 is getting a 2025 edition. It's actually out now. This is Alan Moore, J.H. Williams III, Mick Gray. This is gorgeous if you have not seen this book, and it's a great read. It's $100 regularly, 50% off, only $50. Batman Dark Age hardcover, $39.99 regularly, 50% off, only $19.99. Jujutsu Kaisen, the graphic novel, volume 25, $11.99 regularly, 40% off, only $7.19. And the Marvel Masterworks Vision and the Scarlet Witch hardcover, volume 1, $100 regularly, 46% off, only $54. Two different cover choices available to you on that one. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, we're actually going to be celebrating 19 years of podcasts. Being that it's an anniversary, we decided to take a look at some classic DC and Marvel anniversary specials. These issues that we have picked are ones that are all available right now digitally in some form. Obviously, if you have the issues or have the ability to grab the issues, this is a chance to dig back through your box and pull them out as well. But we wanted to make sure it was accessible to everybody in some format. They are on the apps for the various companies and available on Comixology as well. Justice League 200 is what we're going to be covering. Brave and the Bold 200. Avengers 400. And Fantastic Four 300. We're going to look to try and do this as one episode. It all depends on the nature of it. We know that that's going to be an epic and big show. We'll see how it feels as we record it. It'll either be a 1 or 2-parter, but we will see you next week for the kickoff of our show anniversary.
Bye!
Raging Bullets, a podcast for comic fans on the internet.
Download or stream it now.
Hosted by the legendary Sean and Jim. Spoilers are ahead.
Let's talk some comics now.
The Raging Bullet Show. Let's go.